With less than a month to go before the UK referendum on whether to leave or stay in the EU, one of the battle lines that is emerging is that this is really a contest between the elites and the rest of the country. Not so, says Janan Ganesh, the FT's UK political columnist.
Yeah, it's the Leave campaign is having to define itself against elites, and it's confident that that's a electorally successful message. But I wonder whether some of the elitism is actually on their own side. We've seen recently a lot of economic projections suggesting if we leave the European Union, there'll be a short-term economic downturn, and in the longer term, slightly lower growth than if we stay in. And yet Leave sound incredibly relaxed about that in a way you only can if you've got a relatively high income, relatively high job security, maybe employed in our world, in and around public life, where a downturn of 0.5% of GDP isn't going to kill you. And I think that signals a lot of insouciance, which actually is a form of elitism in itself. And we saw it this week with the Treasury reports about the short-term consequences of Brexit, to which the Leave reaction, I thought, was unbelievably relaxed.
But just to be clear, what we're describing here, I mean, and what you've been writing about, this is sort of the view that, we have seen, as you've said, the Treasury, the Bank of England, very respected economic research institutions, business lobbies, the list goes on,
yes,
who've come out and said, leaving the EU would not be good for Britain. And they are being dismissed as basically part of, if you like, a sort of Davos Plus type club of people who don't live in the real world.
Yeah, well, there are two responses. One is that they're all elites, and they would say that, wouldn't they? And the other half of the response, and we saw it today against the Institute for Fiscal Studies, the other half of the response is to say, yeah, but is it so bad? We might be 5% smaller as an economy by 2030. Frankly, it is quite bad. If you're on a margin of the economy where small shifts in GDP growth determine whether you have a job or not, then these minute differences, which they sound quite casual about, do matter. And their casualness, I think, suggests a form of elitism, which is precisely what they profess to hate.
Well, I mean, some of the true believers on that side would maybe say, that's the price you pay for regaining sovereignty and freedom to determine your own destiny. But you could argue that it's actually quite a smart course for them, the Leave campaign, to pursue, because, I mean, they've got immigration is a powerful argument, which probably plays to their strength. But otherwise, they may feel they don't have a lot of other effective tools in the locker. They're not doing well on the debate about the economy. And this is a very powerful debate, particularly in the times in which we live, that if you run against the elite, however it's described, that can bring you support.
Yeah, I think it's powerful, but people in my profession slightly exaggerate its potency. I think playing the anti-elite card gets you lots of votes, but not enough in any really important election. In a European Parliament election where we saw UKIP win a couple of years ago, it's a hugely powerful weapon. In a local by-election in the middle of a parliament, but when it comes to a general election or an existential referendum, I think it'll get you to 40, conceivably 45% of the vote. The only way you get a plurality is by answering the question of economic credibility, which they failed to so far.
These divisions that we're now seeing exposed around this, but also around other issues, how long will they last beyond the referendum? I mean, are you seeing sort of fractures that are going to be permanent?
I mean, it's possible that you see a repeat of what happened to the SNP. They lost the referendum on independence, but for the SNP it was an incredibly good thing. Quadrupled their membership, now have a near monopoly in Scotland. Could UKIP do something similar? They lose the referendum, but suck in all that energy during the campaign and build an anti-elite populist movement that takes them to becoming a really substantial third party, if not rivaling for second party status in 10 years' time. I think that's quite conceivable, but that's not the same as the immediate short-term goal of winning the referendum. I think anti-elitism and populism are cards that you play to build a long-term movement rather than win an election on a really important matter anytime soon.
Janan Ganesh, thank you very much.
Thank you.